Hello everyone, and welcome to episode 275 of the MTG Goldfish podcast. I'm Seth, probably better known as Saffron Olive, and we have the full crew here this week, kicking things off with the owner of MTG Goldfish, Richard. What's up today, Richard?
Hey Seth, what's going on?
Not much. Kind of a quiet-ish week, but we have some interesting topics, some new arena news, some constructed stuff. But before we get into all that, we have another co-host in the awesome Krim. What's up today, Krim?
Morning, Seth. Not much, but pretty excited. Lots of changes in the constructed world.
That is true, and that's going to be one of our topics for today. So we haven't had a ton of super big news in the Magic world, so our main focus for this week is some arena updates. We did get some future arena news, historic anthology, stuff like that. So we're going to cover that. We're going to talk about constructed formats, what's going on in standard, modern, maybe pioneer, and then of course answer your fish mail. We got some good fish mail questions this week. So before we get into that, a quick reminder that our show today is once again brought to you by Spikes Academy, and Spikes Academy recently launched a new control course with Corey Burkhart. So if you like making your opponent's lives miserable with counter spells and card advantage, this is a perfect course for you. You can check it out now over at spikesacademy.com and learn from the very best players in the world. So thank you to Spikes Academy for supporting the podcast today, and let's talk about some Magic. So let's start with, I guess, the big news, some arena news. Richard, what was the update we got? I think it was during the WotC stream last Thursday. What's coming up on Arena?
All right. Historic Anthologies 3 coming soon. May 21st, they revealed 2 cards, Phyrexian Obliterator and Ulamog Ceaseless Hunger, and also Historic Q will become permanent. So you can play all the time.
I gotta give Wizards credit for that. I have not really, become a huge historic player. I still mostly play standard and modern and pioneer, but one thing I've asked for a long time is Wizards, supporting more, non-standard constructed formats full time. And this is a pretty big step in that direction that they just haven't taken. We've got you can play Brawl on Wednesdays, or if you pay a bunch of gems, you can play Brawl for a month. This is the first time they're just okay, you can play this other format all the time. So shout out to Wizards on that end for just I don't even care that Historic isn't a format I play a ton. Just having any other formats that are up there for players all the time, I think is a really good and positive decision.
I, on the other hand, play a lot of Historic. So I'm really excited that it's full time, because I think that, Historic is actually growing and becoming this format that started off as a meme, right? When it was first announced, we all were okay, well, this doesn't look that great at all, right? This isn't that sweet of a format, but that's because there weren't enough sets. Historic Anthology didn't really hit yet. But now I'm starting to think that Historic is 1 to 2 anthologies away from being a super sweet format, to the point where I'm kind of sad that there isn't an actual paper format yet. I know this sounds weird, but Phyrexian Obliterator, right? Phyrexian Obliterators in this format, and in the same format where now you can go Ayara into Obliterator into Gary, or Arena, Phyrexian Arena that is, into Obliterator, into Gary, stuff like that. I am concerned, the last thing Ramp needed was more good cards, but alright, I guess Ulamog might happen. and I'd rather Ulamog if it meant Nexus ban. And then, this is pretty big. Anthology 3 has me insanely pumped, because I've been personally saying, cause I'm just kind of speculating on what they could put in there. I think I tweeted out a few months ago that they could throw in the Dragons of Tarkir cycle of commands. And I think that would be perfect. I even think Tarmogoyf is fine. Some people say that Tarmogoyf's a bit of a reach. I don't think Tarmogoyf is a bad thing for Historic, so I'm just happy for it. And I can't wait to see what the rest of the cards are. And yeah, the full-time queues is exactly what I've been wanting.
I'm still a little bit I still don't really understand exactly why they're supporting Historic so heavily over formats that see play in other places. What do you think the long-term plan is? Because they've mentioned, Pioneer coming to Historic is something that they're working on. That is on the roadmap or whatever. They're going to start having sets for that. Do you think the long-term plan is to, have Pioneer supported and have Historic supported is its own separate format? Like, will they both coexist on Arena?
Yes.
I mean, yeah. At least I think
these
they'll
anthologies
try.
are making the formats
Yeah.
unique, right? Like they're not the same formats, and I think Historic will be the go-to non-rotating format on Arena, and Wizards is just begrudgingly supporting Pioneer, like because they have to. But in the perfect world, I don't think they want to, right? They just want people to play Standard and then have a reasonable opportunity to play your cards once they rotate. But I don't know that they're going all in and like trying to sell like Tarmogoyfs or something on Arena. Like I don't think they're going to go there, but they have to just to keep people happy. But I think Historic is where they want people to play, but not too much, right? You've seen this already. They started with the non-permanent queues, but now we have permanent queues, so they're easing up on that. But Standard and Draft is where they want all the players playing.
I think it's definitely a nice safety valve, because one of Arena's problems over the last couple of years, I think, is when Standard is bad, there hasn't been other options for players. So I think that just having some sort of secondary queue for when you're not feeling Standard for whatever reason, that you can still play on Arena, I think that is a really huge and really positive change. Because I know, like, for me, that's normally how I play Magic. If I get sick of Standard, I don't quit playing Magic and go play another game. I like play Modern or play Pioneer or whatever. I felt like you could really do that on Arena very easily. Like that's kind of a wall I kept running into. Like it's Oko. Everyone, like 75% of the meta is Oko decks. I just really don't want to play Standard right now. I didn't really have another option that was always available on Arena. So I think that that's a really big step in the right direction that I'm excited for. And I'll probably try to get more into Historic. It does seem like it could be an interesting format. And I think I do love Obliterator. I too, even though I don't know Historic as well as you do, when I heard Ulamog, I was like, oh, that does not necessarily sound like a card that I would choose to put into a format like Historic, especially since I know ramp decks are already pretty powerful, and Ulamog is like Modern quality ramp finisher, or Pioneer quality ramp finisher. Like that's one of the best cards you can ramp into in formats that are much bigger and even more powerful than Historic at this point. So little concerned about Ulamog, but I guess the good news is they have their like fast like suspensions and then banning. So if Ulamog is like super busted, I assume they can just suspend it or whatever.
That'll feel bad if they suspend it upon releasing it, but it's okay. You know, Goblin Ruin Blaster will still take care of the lands that they. I don't think I've ever stopped memeing on Goblin Ruin Blaster, but.
Have you ever seen anyone actually cast one in Historic?
Oh yes, it's happened against me, but
it is a thing people do then a little bit.
Yeah, because like so in the Gruul meta, like it's a Gruul meta, right? For the aggro decks, that's what the Gruul decks pack out of the board.
Okay, that makes sense.
And it does feel bad getting like my land blown up, like, because Gruul can just like that's all they need, right? They just need you to stumble for a little bit. They pack like a full playset, and yes, it does feel bad to lose to the card I meme on all the time, but like it's not like that card like has shut down, you know, Field of the Dead, right? Like Field of the Dead is still good. And
if Wizards want me to start playing more Historic, I think that just adding Blood Moon in one of these anthologies, that would be an easy way to do it. If you're listening, Wizards, next anthologies, give me a Blood Moon, and I promise you, I will stream a bunch of Historic.
If the internet is willing to like chew me a new one for trying to ask for Tarmogoyf, like I don't think we're getting Blood Moon.
How about Magus of the Moon? Like it's removable. You can kill it.
Back to basics. I'll settle for back to basics if I have to.
That just could not happen. I mean, I still like think that that's my concern with the Ulamog announcement. It's just like, dude, ramp is silly. Now you're gonna see like Uro, Golos, Ulamog, right? All this stuff in that meta, and I'm just like, dude, like ramp really didn't need to really like dunk that hard, right?
Oh, just play that 4-mana counterspell that exiles the stack as well.
Summary dismissal, like if that got reprinted, do you think that would even like get played? like in the format that it was in, sure, I played it, right? Like it was good there. Like you got like you know, you didn't have someone steal your turn. You also it kind of like sniped Planeswalker ultimates, but now I don't know if that's where I want to be.
I'm really curious to see how good Obliterator will be. I feel like back in the day, I loved Obliterator. It was like one of my favorite creatures. But we have so many creatures now that do something immediately. I'm genuinely curious if, because Obliterator, as far as a creature you have to like untap with, it is very high quality. Like it is extremely powerful, but you do have to untap with it. So if it just gets like Teferi bounced or tucked or killed, you don't really get anything. Do you think it'll still be good? Like with all the like powerful do something right away creatures we get these days, is Obliterator still up to par in a format like Historic?
Well, when you think about like what Historic offers you to like in a mono black like mid-range style of play, I think you can, right? Because there's enough stuff there that we're going to be stretching the removal thin. Of course, with Obliterator coming out, that's now going to be like, well, maybe I don't need to kill this Ayara, but that means you're keeping Ayara, right? Like my mind has already wandered into like going Golgari and making Obliterator fight as many things as I can. Like that's currently my game plan. Whether it's good, we'll see, because Mono Black does have a lot of stuff, right? Because they gave you Tendrils of Corruption, you have Phyrexian Arena. Like there's a lot there in the Mono Black package.
Oh, do you remember? Oh, what was the card? I can't think of the name. There was this like tech card back when Obliterator was in Standard, where it's like target creature deals damage to itself equal to its power.
Oh,
and you'd get your opponent to just like sack all their permanents. It's like a red sorcery, I want to say, but I can't think of the name. I bet there's something like that in Historic that'll be really hilarious. Like getting people who are trying to play Obliterator is probably going to be a lot of fun.
Oh man, like Justice Strike.
Yeah. Yes.
Like, oh, that, like, how does Obliterator read again? I can't remember. It's been a minute. Like, okay, hold on, I gotta look this up.
It's whenever a source deals damage to Phyrexian Obliterator, that source's controller sacrifices that many permanents. So, Justice Strike, I don't know if that actually works.
Yeah, okay, that does not work. See, okay. See, the only thing I know of, like, when this was in Standard, I only played this because I was trying to farm mono red. I was tired of getting hit by Goblin Guide and stuff like that, so I was like, haha, beat this mono red.
The card I was thinking of is called Rack with Madness. And it's just 4 mana sorcery that says target creature deals damage to itself equal to its power. So since Obliterator is technically the source of the damage, it forces your opponent to, So I think that Justice Strike actually would work then, because that is worded the same way. So yeah, I think it actually would. Wow, that's going to be a blowout. Your opponent's going to play that and you're just going to be like, 2 mana, sack all your lands.
Okay, maybe we should just edit this part out, because like I feel like my first week, if I get Justice Strikes, I'm gonna feel really bad. we should probably not tell people about that card. I mean, like that is not ideal. Oh yeah, that is really bad. If I get Justice Strikes, dude, I mean, I would pick up my cards because Obliterator forces me to, but on top of that, I would pick up my cards and not play that match anyways.
I might start playing Historic just so I can try to Justice Strike you, Grim.
Stream snipe, like Q snipe me.
Yeah.
Oh, is Crim queuing up? All right, let's try to line up now. Oh, weird. 4 Justice Strikes.
All right, so let's move on from the world of upcoming arena stuff, which you said, May 21st? We're like a couple weeks away from Historic Anthologies, which will be exciting. Let's talk about what's going on right now in Constructed Magic. So let's start with Standard, I guess. What is new since last week? We talked about Standard last week. What has changed over the last 7 days or so?
Well, I think if you just look at the constructed format, like Standard, right? From afar, you're just like, okay, companions, we get it, right? Like, companions everywhere, but it's actually all, like, there's a lot right now. Like Standard kind of, see, like, there was something about Standard last format, right? Where it felt like, though there was a lot going on, I was kind of like burnt out, right? But like, there's something about this Standard where there's a lot of companions, a lot of stuff, yes, as the face card of the deck or whatever, right? But underneath all of that, there's actually a lot of depth, right? I mean, we look at it now, we have Jeskai cycling. What was it? Like Jeskai cycling and like Luca, I don't know, Luca Fires in the finals of the Channel Fireball, like online qualifiers. And
yeah,
I don't know, there's just been a lot of stuff. There's even Mono Red has made an appearance. Mono Green has like made an appearance. There's a lot here, and Jeskai Cycling is now looking to be like kind of what was a meme, but is now becoming, well, actually, the trend has always been that, like, as of recent, the decks that have been the big memes have started to become real decks, like Scape Shift Field of the Dead. Haha, sick joke. And then turns out that was real. So I don't know. It looks like cycling is the truth. So much so that there's already been some insanely cool tech out of the sideboard. Like I believe Mike Segrist is the one that did the sweet tech of putting the Wanderer. That's right. I don't know how many people remember what the Wanderer does. But the Wanderer's passive saves you from Zenith Flare because let me pull up the Oracle text here. The Wanderer, no, not the, yeah, there we go. I googled it and I got a song recommendation. Prevent all non-combat damage that would be dealt to you and other permanents you control. And then -2, exile target creature with power 4 or greater. Obviously, I guess you could hit a fox with that, but outside of that, like, there's nothing to exile in the cycling deck. But the passive makes it so Zenith Flare cannot hit you. They have to spend exactly 1 Zenith Flare on the Wanderer.
Well, that is pretty sweet tech. I will say that it is cool to see the cycling deck being real, mostly because it's so cheap. It's cool to see like a legitimate, like, can win tournaments deck that is relatively budget friendly for players and budget friendly on Arena as well. It's a deck that you don't have to have a ton of wild cards. I think, like, outside of, like, potentially needing dual lands, which you can and get by without them, but I think the Tri-Land's actually bad in that deck, but everyone plays it anyway. But outside of needing dual lands, it's almost like no rares in that deck, so it's really cheap to put together. I also think, you mentioned the Wanderer, I've been playing a lot of Unmoored. I feel like Unmoored is good against, like, almost all the top decks in the format. Like, Snagging Fires is good. Snagging Wilderness Wreck is good.
Agent of Treachery.
Agent of Treachery against, or Winota is another one. Like, I don't know what to name in that matchup. I usually name Winota, but one of those against the Winota deck's good. Zenith Flare against Cycling is really good. So I feel like it's actually relevant against, like, almost all the top decks in the meta right now. So I feel like people should play more Unmoored Egos too.
As somebody who main decks that card, like, I agree. I mean, that's also just because I like hating out certain decks, like, hilariously with, like, really bad cards. And because right now, if you look at the standard metagame, outside of, like, I did just mention that mono red has been popping up, like Obosh mono red and stuff like that. You know, there's not a lot of respect for aggro, right? Like, I mean, people have sideboarded out hate for it. People are like, yeah, whatever. Like, I mean, I myself, I'm just like, what am I going to do? Get paired against mono red? And then, like, so like, I did say that. And, you know, it's true though. Like, I didn't get paired against mono red after like 20 matches on the ladder. So maybe this is the perfect time to play mono red, right, Richard? To just jump in and surprise people with mono red. I know this because, like, Richard loves mono red. So
No.
You do. You even, like, I don't know, like, maybe, like, I think right now there's just not that much respect for aggro. So you can definitely get the jump on people. Like, Ether Gust may be the only thing that people are currently packing.
I think you can get the jump on Crim, but because Lurus decks exist, like, aggro is, like, really hard. You need to go Obosh and, like, go for a combo kill. But just trying to, like, aggro through a cat is, like, very, I'm gonna say, challenging and demoralizing.
But like, I don't know. I mean, like, cat decks have also, like, declined a little bit. It's on the downswing this week. So that's the only reason why I think it's great. Because everybody's playing Yori on piles, right, Seth?
Actually, while I do love me some Yarion, I actually put together just, like, top tier, straight up net deck Jeskai Fires over the weekend. And,
with Luka? Luka Doncic?
I played a little bit of the Luka build. I was playing the old build before that and still crushing people with it. I feel like that deck's still really good. The Luka build, I think, is cute. I think it's cool that people finally woke up to Luka being able to just, like, get Agent of Treachery all the time. Like, that card is actually really powerful when you can manipulate what you're going to hit with it. The -2 is, like, very strong. So I don't know. Do you think that new build of, like, Yarion, Luka Fires, do you think do you think that's going to actually replace the more traditional, like, Karuga Cavalier build, over the long term? Or do you think it's kind of the flavor of the weekend?
I mean, it's got the most hype right now, right? So maybe this week and like, you know, this past week, this week, and maybe bleeds into a little bit of the week after. I think it could be pretty popular, but then we'll see, right? I mean, right now, a lot of people, like even like pros are saying it's pretty good. Like it's really good. Like it seems to be the truth. So if it's the truth, then maybe it stays like, cause it's not as like easy to hate out, you know, if I go, haha, Hushbringer, right? Like, okay, well, I have 3 fairy. I have like 50 other cards that are also going to deal with that card. Whereas like Garuda was easily hated out, right? Cause remember that was the top dog for week 1, right? And then gone, instantly gone. Like you don't even see that anywhere. So I don't know. This standard has been, as I had mentioned a little bit earlier, it's been pretty wild.
Yeah, it definitely has been interesting, so far. I think we are at the point where, for the most part, you have to play a companion to be competitive. Like, I've just kind of reached that point in my deck building where it's like, I have to have a companion of some kind. I almost don't even like care what companion it is, but just like having one, I think you gotta have a very specific reason. Like Temur Wreck is an example of a deck that can get by without a companion. But I think apart from like really, really fringe situations, what do you think about that? Do you approach building decks and playing decks the same way? Are you at that point where you're like, okay, like this doesn't have a companion, so I can't actually, like, I can play it for fun, but I can't actually play it seriously?
I am not there yet. I'm still playing a bunch of like decks without companions. And of course, yes, my chat's like, you know, lol, not playing a companion. Like, you know what I mean? But like, I think that, you know, I'm just going to try to explore all the spaces that are currently in standard because there is a lot. But maybe I'm not saying that it is 100, like it's correct to not play a companion or anything like that. I still think that companions are very powerful. And it is great. You know, that 8th card that everybody talks about. It's great. But I don't know. I feel like there's still stuff out there. Like Temur Wreck right now feels like the control deck for me. That is the most like, you know, controlling deck that I could find that also does something powerful enough where, you know, it doesn't durdle. It just kind of just wins the game because it has to, or else it loses 2 companions. But yeah, like having something like 3 fairy running around being popular does kind of make Wilderness Reclamation a little scary, but that's still one of the top decks, I think, right now. And I think it's still very good. So, and like you had mentioned, it doesn't play companions. There's the Kahira, like, have you played against it at all? The Kahira, Groll, like aggro deck.
I know what you're talking about, but I haven't actually played against it. Yeah, just like the motley crew of Gruul creatures that happen to have Kahira's card types for the most part.
But Quartzwood Crasher, like, you know what I mean? Like these are like Yadaro, like some of them have started to just play like somebody I played on the ladder had like 4 Chandras in the main deck. I was like, well, you know, they were really ready for like the 3 people on this entire like server that brought like Durdle control, but like I got bodied pretty hard. But like
they were ready for you, Grim.
Yeah,
they knew they were going to be up against you.
I was like, well, sitting there with like 5 counter spells, resolves. Lost to an emblem. Okay, dealt with it with ECD. Played another one. Oh my gosh. But yeah, like Yadaro, like in the deck, all of that, it's pretty sweet, right? And I'm starting to like see the value because like I was playing a mono green deck and Gem Razor. I remember we had talked about that like in our top 10 for like standard for a little bit, right? But like Gem Razor is actually just really good when you go like turn 1 Pelt Collector or like, you know, the Barkhide Troll or even anything along those lines, or just Stone Coil Serpent on 1 or 2 and then just Gem Razor on 3. Simple as that, because now you have trample, and it's a bigger threat, and if you put it on Stone Coil, it can't be targeted by multicolored. And like, it's weird because like all these multicolored decks just cannot beat that. The amount of times where I just sit there just like, well, I guess I lose to this Stone Coil Serpent that's a 2/2 that's been hitting me all game. Like,
and you get to blow up like fires in Wilderness Reclamation or like Witch's Oven. There's actually like, even beyond just being a good beatdown threat, it's like incidentally this main deck hate for a lot of powerful cards in the format right now.
Yeah, like that, like the ability to blow up the enchantments and artifacts, and like I even like Thrashing Brontodon as my 5th gem raiser that I can interact with at instant speed to really keep mono red in check.
So, Richard,
it seems great.
Question for you. We gave you homework last week a little bit. We talked about the drifting to modern. We talked a little bit about Lurrus and Jund in this new build of Jund. Did you actually get a chance to explore some modern and try Lurrus and Jund?
I bring news from the front, gentlemen. I played 3 leagues. Thoughtseize is dead. Thoughtseize has been defeated in 2020. This is no longer a card you want in your deck. It is a meme.
What?
It joins Tarmogoyf. So let me explain to you how many games I lost running Lurrus Jund. So in 2020, there's a 1 mana cryptic command that's really good against Thoughtseize. Okay, that was already like Thoughtseize was on its like deathbed. Okay, but now everyone is playing Baubles and Astrolabes, right? So you Thoughtseize them and you're like, oh, okay, it resolved. I didn't get like 2 for 1, and then you see like Baubles and Astrolabes. Like, what do you do with this? Like nothing. And then like you're like alive. You're like trying to like beat them down, and you're like, look, it's Garuda combo. You know, I need to stop Garuda combo. What do I have to stop Garuda? I'm holding a bunch of Thoughtseizes. It's in their companion zone. I can't do crap about this, right? Or you're playing its burn. Thoughtseize is already really bad, but you're like, okay, I need to get that Lurrus because they're gonna bring back Goblin Guide and smash my face. Can't do it. Like, there's just no reason to play Thoughtseize anymore. It is such a bad card that it is not worth playing Thoughtseize.
Are you saying discard in general is bad, or would you just say, you know what, just play the full set of Inquisitions?
No, like all like Thoughtseize and Inquisition is just terrible. And Lurrus Jund deck I think is actually really bad. So if you like Red and 6, you might like this. So the idea of the deck is you just grind them out, except you have like no game against any deck that like combos you because you're too slow to kill them. So like, yeah, you can sit there and keep bobbling, and then on turn 4 they kill you. You're like, yeah, good bobbles, and then you have nothing to kill them with, right? Because you spent your turns casting Seal of Fire instead of, you know, like real spells. So actually, I don't like it at all, right? Like, so if you play another like creature-based deck that's fair, you're good to go. But there are like none of those decks in Modern. Like everyone else is a combo deck. Or, you know, they just don't care about what you do, right? Like, it doesn't matter that I'm drawing cards with Bobble if there's an Urza on the other side of the battlefield, right? Or Titans coming down, or any one of the companions coming down. Like, it just doesn't matter anymore. So I don't know why people are still playing Lurrus Jund, but, you know, people still are playing it in Modern, but it only beats up, like, the mirror. Like, that's what it's good at.
Were you playing the Death Shadow version, or just
No. The straight Jund version. So I tried some with, so they all have Run in 6. Some have Bob in the main deck. Some have Bob in the sideboard. Tried both variations. It's just too slow. Like, and Croxa's not as good without Liliana. So with Liliana and Croxa, A, you can fill up your graveyard to like actually cast Croxa, but B, you run your opponent out of cards. Like, you just hit them with like the Thoughtseize, the Croxa, the Lily. They're out of cards. They can't actually win. But when you cut the lilies, Croxa doesn't actually do anything. It's just like a bad bolt that you're bringing back with Lurrus every turn. So I feel it's not as strong as like traditional Jund against the non-creature decks. But if you're trying to grind out like, I don't know, like elves or something, then yeah, this deck is great, right? But like no one plays these like fair creature decks anymore. So it just doesn't matter, right? You just have no game against combo whatsoever.
Oh, go ahead, Graham.
Well, I was going to say that maybe then the Death Shadow version is the way to go then, because they've been playing like Footfall Crater, right? So like you get your hasting Death Shadow and you just hit somebody and then that's it. It's over.
Yeah, Death Shadow looks actually pretty good with the Lurrus, because you can get back Death Shadow. Death Shadow actually kills people like at a reasonable amount of time. But Death Shadow without Thoughtseize. Like, I don't know. You still get I actually have to try it, but like, oh, Thoughtseize is so bad now. Like, I just don't want this card in my hand ever, right? Like, oh.
I think the other cool innovation I've seen in Modern is if you look at like the top Modern decks, A lot of them are pre-existing decks that just have adapted a companion, especially Lurrus. There's like so many like Burn, Hardened Scales, Devoted, Druid combos, Jund, Death Shadow, like you name it, they're playing Lurrus now. But I think the newest deck that's really like kind of risen up recently is the Gruul Abash deck, which is actually like a Luca deck. I think that deck's actually really cool. It's kind of like, it's a little bit like the Panza decks, from the past where you're like an Arbrelf Utopia Sprawl deck, but you're playing all, ones and threes essentially, except you get a single Emrakul and then Luca. So if you sacrifice Seasoned Pyromancer, Magus of the Moon, Clothis, Kitchen Finks, you just randomly end up with an Emrakul that happens to cost 15, so it does work with Abash. I think that's one of maybe the most new decks, and it's actually like a legit deck. It has like 16 finishes or something. It's like the third deck on our metagame page right now. It's actually like a top tier modern deck at the moment, which I think is pretty cool.
I mean, yeah, like, I think that's pretty sweet. Like, that's really cool. I mean, it does kind of feel like we'll see how sweet it is when like Emrakul constantly hits me, but like, you know what I mean? Like, Luca's looking pretty good so far.
You know,
like,
it's better than an Emrakul. It's an Emrakul with Abash out, so it actually 30s you.
Yeah. If you were ever like worried, you know, like, they still
Emrakul
survive the Annihilator.
Yes. Is my Emrakul going to be enough? I'm not sure. Yeah. I better Abash and just make sure that this Emrakul's good enough.
Have you guys played against the deck? Like, you don't need to get combo killed. Like, you will die to, like, they get a Clothis on the battlefield and they just Abash and you can't deal with it. Like, you're just dead, right? Like, you don't even need the combo kill, right? They just kill you with, like, little dirtle dudes if you can't deal with the Abash, like, immediately.
That is kind of the funny part about it. Like, Clothis hits for, 4?
Yep.
They play Burning Tree Shaman that pings for 1 whenever a player activates an ability, which all of a sudden becomes 2, and then you're, like, getting pinged like crazy when you do anything. So it actually has this kind of almost, like, Abash stacks feel to it a little bit, to some extent, which is, I think it's a really interesting deck. It's a deck I haven't really played with it yet. I played against it a couple times, but it's a deck that I'm planning on playing some games with because it looks pretty sweet to me.
I mean, yeah, it's playing like Magus of the Moon, so like you're getting locked out by that on your mana, but it also brings in Choke. And I'm just like, well, okay.
So what about the other format we haven't covered? Pioneer. Do we have any Pioneer news? I know, like, similar to Modern, we got a lot of Lurrus stuff. The Auras deck that was already pretty good with SRAM is now really good now that it has Lurrus. Burn has suddenly, like, become a deck in Pioneer thanks to Lurrus. Feather decks with Lurrus. Hardened Constrictor decks with Lurrus. What else is going on in Pioneer, though?
I mean, this may seem funny, like, cause it did to me, but like, Dimir Inverter decks now going to 95 cards. Like, I'm like, oh, yeah. I mean, I guess it doesn't matter, right? Cause Inverter eats all the cards all the same. But like, yeah, they're going up to like 95 cards. They're doing some like pretty wild things there. I have realized, like, okay, I didn't know at some point Orzhov Auras just really got popular, and then it got even more popular with Lurrus, right? So I don't know if it's just me, but I've been playing nonstop Demonic Pact. And that deck with Yorion is absolutely bonkers. It dunks on the Auras deck so bad because, like, Flicker of Fate, that card is so good. Have I been sleeping on this card? Like, Flicker of Fate is the truth. And, like, being able to flicker something like Elspeth's Nightmare to, like, at instant speed, or Oath of Kaya, or anything along those lines, or even the Trials of Ambition or whatever. Like, that's amazing. Like, the Auras deck just can't beat that. And like on top of that, like you're gaining a lot of life from your Oath of Kaya, so you're dunking on Burn. The only thing is you just absolutely get embarrassed by the Breach deck. And so like I've been loving Pioneer too. Like it seems weird because right now it's just a lot like how all the other constructed formats are. There's a lot of companions everywhere, but underneath that, there's a lot of depth. And I've been really enjoying, like, a lot of the constructed formats right now.
I think something else we kind of maybe missed talking about changes in the last week is we've also kind of seen the rise of Zerda. a little bit under the radar. It's not like it's like Loris or anything, but we've started to see these Zerda combo decks pop up. There's a Jeskai cycling deck with Zerda that has got some finishes in Pioneer that is actually like sort of like the standard deck where you're using like Zenith Flares and Shark Typhoons along with older stuff. You have the Flourishing Foxes, but you get like Nimble Obstructionists and Incensors and so forth. And then there's been some like straight up modern combo decks, which I think they're actually pretty sweet. The main combo is Umbral Mantle. I don't know if you guys even know what this card does. It's a weird old untapped card, but it's an equipment. Normally it costs 3, and you can untap the equipped creature and give it +2/+2 until end of turn. If you can stick that on a mana dork, like say a Birds of Paradise, and have a Zerda to reduce the cost down to 1, you just like tap birds for the mana and then use that mana to untap it and have an infinitely big Birds of Paradise, maybe on like turn 3, and then just one-shot your opponent with like the biggest Birds of Paradise in Magic. So I think we're starting to see the more under the radar companions, the ones that are harder to build around. People are starting to figure those ones out. Like Luris is easy, Yarion is easy, but we're starting to see the ones that are powerful but take a little bit of work because of their restriction. Those are starting to find homes now too.
I play against that combo in Standard, the Zerda one, and it does all of that, right? It plays it eventually goes and uses Fae of Wishes to pull a expansion explosion and hit you. Like that's pretty cool. And I've even seen mono green Amori.
Ooh.
So like like you had mentioned, like these companions now are starting to show up, even like the lesser like known ones. Like I'm excited. I don't know. Maybe I'm still like I've still got like another month to go until I've hit that point. But I love these, like the fact that all these companions are seeing play.
I definitely think it's cool to see the lesser companion showing up. I'm getting to the point where I'm a little bit like, all right, like another Luris stack. Come on now. Like I've seen this before, but I think it is cool to see the Zerdas and so forth of the world actually finding homes. For me, those decks, I think those decks are kind of interesting because it actually feels like something a little bit new to some extent that we didn't have before. Like, I think part of why Abash, and even as much as I love, Yorion, like, those decks, they feel like they're just normal decks that didn't have to do too much work to have an 8th card in hand. But if you're building like a Zerda deck, you're actually putting some effort into that. Like, that's a deck that wasn't a thing before. So I think, those decks are more intriguing to me right now, the ones with the lesser companions.
Yes. I definitely understand that.
Speaking of companions, I got a very angry email this week, which is something I didn't consider. But so Yorion decks are 95 cards, right? Because you need all the extra cards. So we talked about this briefly, that it costs you more money to complete your deck, more wild cards and things like that. But one thing I didn't consider was the magic accessories needed to support this. So the person that emailed me was very upset that their standard deck box, like they made a custom made like wooden standard deck box, cannot fit a Yorion deck. So you basically need to switch over to Commander products now, right? Because now you need 95 sleeves. You need a box that holds like 95 cards. You need to shuffle a 80 card deck. Right. So, I wonder if the metagame will diverge between paper and online, like even more, right? Because like, why go through all this hassle of like getting basically new everything and extra cards to play Yorion when I can just play like a normal 75 card deck? But that was a pretty interesting thing about accessories. That this person was very upset about their custom deck box not working anymore.
I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, maybe Orion's like in league with Alter Pro or something. It's all like some shady deals behind the scenes to make players buy more sleeves.
I'd been buying Dragon Shields. Those always came with 100, so that works out. But I didn't think about the deck boxes. Like I was just like, wow.
I'm worried for Seth, like shuffling 80 double sleeved cards. Like this is gonna be a nightmare.
Oh, I can't even shuffle 50 or 60. Yeah.
I just remember that now. Yeah, your shuffling is very interesting to watch.
I think I've improved slightly since then, but I think maybe a little bit, but I don't know if I'm up to the 80 card challenge yet. I'm still getting used to 60.
If you haven't seen Seth shuffle, it looks like at any point, all of his cards are about to go flying all over the table. And I just want to go, you know what, Seth, why don't you just let me shuffle for you?
Yes, fun times. So any other constructed thoughts from any formats before we answer some fish mail?
Just the only thing here is like you see a companion on the front of the deck. Don't it's not. It could not be what you think it is. I've made that mistake. Oh, Luris. All right. Well, it's gonna be cat deck, and it's nope. No, it's something else. All right. Cool.
Yeah, especially with Luris. Some of them are easier to figure out than others. Luris, it could be like anything. I think in standard, Abash, like pretty much some sort of sacrifice deck, maybe an aggro deck. Yarion can also be like more or less anything, although it's usually like some sort of ramp or fires deck. That is,
yeah.
I actually had someone argue with me this week that people were misevaluating companions because they were not putting any weight into the information it gives away. And that's a big drawback of playing a companion is your opponent, when they're making their mulligan decisions, they they know what your companion is and they could theoretically, mulligan better based on that information. So maybe we're all wrong on companions, and the fact that your opponent gets that information means they're actually not good.
Yeah. And it's like, well, you thought it was this, but it was actually this. Haha. It's like Scooby-Doo when they unveil the person behind the mask.
It's like a power move where you just reveal your hand like before the game is over, and you're like, look at my hand. It doesn't matter what you do. Like, my hand is this, you lose. So here's my companion. Look at it. Accept it.
Look at it. I will always have this companion.
All right, let's answer some fish mail. Richard, take it away.
All right, if you have questions, send them to @MTGGoldfish with the hashtag MTGFishmail, and we'll get to your questions on air. Snare Johnson 664. Hey gang, do you know when Commander cards get put on Moto? Did they release the date for Commander 2020? I think they did, right?
So I believe they said the end of May they would be releasing most of them through Treasure Chests. I haven't seen an exact date. It's possible I missed it, but yes, through Treasure Chests, the end of May was the last I heard.
Yeah, and it's going to be select cards from C20, not all of the cards, unless they surprise us.
I think I was on Moto today and just like looking through some cards, and I noticed some Commander cards. Some of them have red borders, which means they aren't actually like working, and other ones don't. So I think you can figure out the ones that aren't going to be on there if you go look around a little bit on Moto.
All right. It's Not My Fault 01. With Triomes and Scrylands enabling greedy but slow mana bases in Standard, is there an opportunity for Standard Ponza to make an appearance?
I
like
wish.
Competitively or just
what is Ponza? Is it just like ramp / land destruction? Like, what defines the Ponza archetype?
So I think it's loosely used for any sort of land destruction. That's my take on it, at least. I don't think ramp has to be part of it, although because the modern like green-red deck is like the most common Ponza deck, I can see that how people would associate those things, but I think it can refer to any land destruction deck, actually.
Okay.
Like Rain of Tears is not in green and red.
I think the issue is that standard land destruction is just not good. Like that's the issue. If you think of standard, and I actually think there's a strong argument that Wizards, with all the powerful ramp they're printing, should start printing slightly more powerful land destruction. But I think if you look at it right now, like, by the time, land destruction costs a minimum of 4 mana. And by the time you're doing that, your opponent has theoretically already played Fires of Invention and cast 4-drop and maybe multiple 5-drops if they are like ramped a little bit. So I think you can build a Ponza deck for fun, but I think your odds of it actually being like more than like very, very slightly competitive are really low. The land destruction itself is just not up to par or fast enough.
And on top of that, there's a strong chance in Standard that maybe your opponent, if they're playing like the Jeskai Luca version, they're the Ponza deck because they've already stolen a few of your lands with Ancient of Treachery.
If you wanna go land destruction, that probably is the best way to go, honestly, is just like try to cheat Agent into play and then like copy it with the Mythos or whatever and like steal all your opponent's lands.
Is that really land destruction?
I mean,
really calling it.
It emotionally feels bad, so I guess like I don't feel great when my lands get stolen. But like I actually like just wonder, like, at that point, like, why WotC, they didn't, like, print, like, even, Burning Earth or something like that. Just a way to, like, really punish all these, like, big mana decks. Like, that'd be great right now.
I honestly think that with how powerful Standard is right now, I could see an argument for Stone Rain being an okay Standard card.
Never will happen.
I think if that will never happen, I think maybe you have to go, like, 4-mana land destruction with a bigger upside. Like, how about 4-mana land destruction? Well, no, like 4-mana land destruction, but this spell costs 2 less to cast if your opponent had 2 lands enter the battlefield this turn. Or something like that. Instead of like 4-mana land destruction, it's like, oh, you get to make a creature not block or something that's completely irrelevant.
Yeah. Or modal, like where it's like it blows up a land or deals 4 damage to a creature.
Ooh. Yeah, that would be a way to get land destruction in the main deck. Oh, but I don't think Wizards wants that. I want that, but I don't think Wizards actually wants land destruction to be something people play.
I just want to punish ramp decks.
Yeah, you can't do that. So I think the most fair one would be like a banishing priest type thing, right? Where like you exile a land until the creature gets removed, and you get your land back. However,
that
like,
sounds...
the most unfun thing in Magic is not playing your cards, right? It trumps being destroyed by the guy that ramps like 1,000,000 mana and like casts their like 10 drop or whatever. Like if you sit there and you play like land and then your opponent is like, okay, turn 1 birds, Stone Rain. And you're like, okay, land. And they're like, okay, Stone Rain. And then you sit there and do nothing for the next 10 minutes as your opponent can't kill you because they're playing nothing but Stone Rain. So it takes a really long time to kill you with Lawnmower Elves or whatever. Like, it is so unfun that Wizards will never bring back land destruction in any meaningful capacity, right? Like, they throw the card in there, like, you know, they're like,
but Fall of Thran. Fall of Thran. That was land destruction, Richard.
I mean, they have printed like 6-mana land, like Haphazard Bombardment, can blow up lands, Fall of Thran, but it has been like
playable.
super expensive, like so expensive that it's not actually playable.
It's like by the time you've played all cards in your hand, I will let you destroy lands, right? Like, but I do agree, we do need Armageddon type effects, right? Like you can't just ramp all the lands out of your deck and like I can't interact with you in any way, right? Like,
yeah, like I just wish there was some way to punish ramp, and there really isn't. There's like absolutely no way, and like please, even you know what? I'll even take a Goblin Rune Blaster at this point in Standard. I'm so desperate.
What about like not punishing ramp but getting advantage? Like, say it's like a 2-mana white enchantment during your upkeep, create a 2/2 cat token for every land your opponent controls that's greater than the number of lands you control. Something like that.
Is that even like, they
reverse
just sweep
Field of the
board,
Dead?
Right?
Okay, make them stronger. Make them Carnage Tyrants. I don't know. Right?
Okay, okay. Well, what about this? Hear me out. It's called Price of Progression, right? And it's in white.
It's in white, so gain life equal.
Gain 3 life.
Gain 3 life for each non-basic your opponent controls. Hooray. Got him. We solved it.
We punished ramp truly, because they will now have to time out to kill us at our high health total.
I do think though, like, maybe something that deals damage when a land comes into play under your opponent's control. You mentioned like Burning Earth earlier, Mana Bar. Like, there are things you can do that are not straight up destroying lands that could still maybe punish ramp decks. I think also, like, I really think my theory is that Wizards maybe didn't take into account how consistent decks would be with their ramp, with like the mulligan rule changes and companions, and they didn't necessarily design the ramp cards with that in mind, and maybe they'll like tone down ramp in the future now that we see. I think that ramp is like dominating Standard. Like, that's kind of my argument. I think like that is the most powerful thing in Standard, and basically every deck is doing it. So maybe Wizards just like needs time to catch up with all the changes in Magic and will tone down ramp in the future, hopefully.
I mean, like, rampant growth, whatever, didn't need to draw a card and do all this other stuff at instant speed, right?
Yeah, at least like rampant growth, there is a drawback because it's not something you want to top deck on like turn 8. Like, it's pretty bad. But Uro Spiral or Uro, you're like, hooray! Like, yes, yes, it's my ramp spell on turn 8.
It's a 6/6 also. Wow, I gained 3 life. This is great.
All right, Noah Boy 99. What do you think the best way to get into Modern is? I'm a Commander player first, so I have lots of cards, but can't figure out which decks to get into first. With the format changing so much, what would you look into? outside of Burn?
Oh.
Oh, Burn is so good.
Outside of Burn?
Burn is actually like really good right now.
Is there anything else in Modern right now that isn't Luren's Burn? No, I'm just kidding. I think that's cheap. That's like, if we're going for budget, right? Like that seems hard, right? But there's a lot there if like, I guess you already have the cards or something like that. I mean, I don't know. There's the Urza decks. There's Hardened Scales. I mean, if you like Affinity, this is pretty much like the newest version of Affinity. Like, I mean, that Gruul Obosh deck seems really cool. And it seems relatively cheap as I look at it compared to like all the other decks in Modern, right? Like almost everything is cheap-ish for Modern.
Yeah, I think I would stay away from Lura's decks just because I don't have high confidence that that's going to be a card that sticks around, or decks that are only decks because of Lura's. Like the Devoted Druid combo, that's probably fine, or Jund, that's probably fine, because they're decks anyway, but like Hardened Scales was like kinda low tier until Lura's came around, or even Burn to some extent. So I would be a little careful about spending a ton of money on a companion deck just because they're so new, and we don't know what the long term is going to look like, with those cards in the format. I think the Snow deck is pretty good. Like, that's a pretty safe choice if you just want to be like the Bant Snow deck. Primeval Titan decks are always good. Humans has been around for a long time and isn't super expensive. So I think there's plenty of options. I think it really depends on what cards are in your collection, to help bring the price down, and what your playstyle is. Because there really is a deck for basically any playstyle.
Except like extremely dirtily control. They don't like that. So.
Except for mid-range Jund.
Yeah. Yeah, so pretty much deck for everybody, except for dirtily control and mid-range Jund.
Fair magic. By turn 4.
there's a combo deck for anyone. No matter what style of combo you enjoy, you will find a Modern deck that'll fit your playstyle.
Memes aside, though, there are a lot of combo decks in Modern. Like, the diversity there is actually pretty cool. Like, you have like creature-based combos, like spell-based combos, artifact-based combos. So there's actually somehow like a lot of different combo decks. So
I mean, what happened to the days where the best combo was I hit my 4th land and I play Jace the Mind Sculptor? That was a combo, right?
Like, next question. The Fairy MTG. Seth, would you rather shave off your beard or play Infect and Eldrazi Tron for a year?
Oh, no.
I thought you liked Eldrazi Tron.
Oh. Wait, Seth has a beard?
Did you play it once and like be like, hey, this is actually pretty good?
it is pretty. When I complain about decks and then I play them, I actually usually end up enjoying them. That's something I've realized. I think that I would keep the beard. I don't think I can let the beard go. I don't know how much I would enjoy that year, but I will enjoy it more if I can stroke my beard as I'm playing horrible Infect decks.
I still am surprised. This is news to me. Seth has a beard.
You just learned that?
Yeah. It's hard to see past my beard. That's why. Sorry.
All right. Here's the money question. Alex32359. Is Standard healthy? Sure. It's diverse. Things are often changing. There is no best deck. But is Standard fun? In my opinion, no. I'm fine with companions in Standard, but cards like Fires, 3 Fairy, Wilderness Reclamation, Cat Oven are too oppressive. Thoughts?
I do not find any of those cards problematic, personally. Like 3 Fairy, has single-handedly taken away one of my favorite type of, like, archetypes, right? Counterspell control decks, sure. I mean, yeah, you do have them now, but, like, sure, right? It's not that great. But even then, I don't think it's that big of a problem, because it's like Teferi doesn't win the game. You know what I mean? It just slows it down a little, but like it doesn't win the game. And like Cat Oven, that's fine. I think all these cards are like fine. I think my problematic cards, actually like Seth just dropped like an article about it, and I have an issue with, like the mana, the accelerators. Like right now we just talked about it a little, is Ramp. I think Ramp is ridiculous. I think Nissa is bonkers. Just stuff like that is where I feel Standard's weird, but is it fun? Yeah, it's still fun regardless of that.
I will say I have been having fun with Standard since iCourier released. I definitely have my concerns about it, and if you ask me this a month from now, my answer might be different, but I have been having fun. I have been having fun playing Standard since iCourier released.
Yeah, and like I have too, and it's not like the fun where like, new set, that's why it's fun. I genuinely have enjoyed like the patterns of play. Outside of like, yeah, you could say what patterns of play, fires and then just like, win the game, right? But but like there's a lot more than just that. If you look at it, the patterns of play are definitely much more deeper than that. I mean, as opposed to like before Ikoria, where it's like, haha, check this out. Ramp. We're at the X Games now. All these ramps. And then boom. Nissa. Look at me. I have all this mana. Guess what's following this Nissa? Hydroid Crazes.
Krim is just so happy that Nissa is not a big part of the meta anymore.
I may or may not dislike a card. I'm still in the camp, like where I do think Oko was a problem, but Oko paid for Nissa's sins. I'm just saying,
All right. Last question from Tom via email. At first, I felt companions made Magic worse. They warped the game so much. But if you're not playing them in your deck, you're playing it wrong. But as I play more, I'm starting to grow on them. Yes, they changed the way we see and play the game, but companions reduce variance. When planeswalkers were introduced, there were a bunch of people who didn't like the cards, like Jace and Elspeth. And some of my friends even banned planeswalkers at their kitchen tables. So, if WotC prints more companions, they become part of the game, and it's just like adding planeswalkers. I'm trying to summarize the question.
It is
hold on. So the TLDR is number 3. Would you agree that they started with bad companions like the first walkers and Lurrus was a mistake, but future companions could be fixed and an integral part of the game? So is Lurrus Jace the Mind Sculptor like super OP? Is Yorion Jace the Mind Sculptor, and we should enjoy companions going forward, or, just inherently bad? And I will note there are people to this day that still inherently think like planeswalkers are bad for the game, by the way.
I don't think, obviously I'm biased here, but I really like planeswalkers. I still to this day haven't had fatigue of it. So maybe that's why I also enjoy companions, much like was mentioned there. It changes the way the game is currently played. Yes. But I think companions, I might be in the minority, but I think companions are good for like Magic right now.
So should they be evergreen? Would you be pleased if in the next set there are more companions? Kind of like partners in Commander? Like maybe they're not there every set, but they are a thing and they keep making new partners.
I think I'm okay with that, right? I guess as I play more, I'm getting, cause at first I was hoping like it was just exclusive to Ikoria, right? But then as I play against more of it, I'm okay with more of them. But the issue is, like we had talked about it like before, it's just what can you do for the next batch of companions? Let's just say that they try to make more. At best, there's maybe one more cycle. What else?
I mean, you could have said that with planeswalkers, but here we are with everyone's Obnixilis template of plus 1 card advantage, -2 removal, ultimate with the game, right? Like you can keep making companions forever, right?
Planeswalkers have changed though, right? Planeswalkers have changed. Like, yes, there is the cookie cutter 5-drop, right? That's the cookie cutter 5-drop that was very popular, but I mean, War of the Spark changed it up. I don't know where you all stand on that. Some people like it, some people don't. But I loved War of the Spark as a set, -1 green card that was 5 mana that doubles forest mana. And so, like, outside of that card, I think Planeswalkers have changed. And I am curious, like, what else you can do with companions. Like deck restriction wise.
So I spent a chunk of my weekend based on this question, actually, like really thinking about this, talking to people about it on Twitter. And I think the issue is, according to Wizards themselves, they just don't see a lot of design space with companions. I think I actually asked, like, could these be like planeswalkers? Like, is there enough design space where you could have, hundreds at some point in the future? And the answer from like Inside Wizards was, they didn't think there was that amount of design space. Even like Mark Rosewater responded and said there isn't a lot of design space. A couple other designers chimed in. So I think that is the problem. Is I don't know if it's possible to go that technique. I think I can see the argument people are making, like, oh, the problem with companions is there's only 10 of them. You have to play a companion. If we had like 100 companions or 500 companions, then everyone just starts with 8 cards in hand, and there's a normal amount of diversity because you have so many options. Like, sure, everyone gets 8 cards, but that's fine. Like, you can play a whole bunch of different options as your 8th card. I don't think that that's possible with the companion mechanic, because Wizards themselves doesn't seem to think there's enough design space to have there be hundreds of them.
I guess you could make them theme based, right? Like it's like, your deck has to contain only samurais or something, because return to Kamigawa or something the next set. I don't know. That's like, you know what I mean? Like that's how they could do it, right? Based on the set, right? I guess they could do that.
You could just remove the restriction altogether, right? Like it could be. I keep bringing back to Hearthstone, right? But like, so Hearthstone's main gimmick is you have a mana sink in your hero power, right? And your only restriction is like you have to play cards from that class, right? Like, you know, it's like the colors of Magic, so to speak, right? You could just make like, say, let's say I play Jund and I'm like, okay, I want like Liliana of the Veil like all the time. So there's a Liliana of the Veil companion with like basically some restriction that doesn't matter. But I can always have like a 3 CMC Planeswalker play at all times. And that's my hero power, or that's my companion, right? And you can just have anything, right? It could be like a 2 mana 3/3 companion. It could be a Carnage Tyrant companion, but basically an 8th card that's always in your hand.
Let's not make that one. Let's not.
Like Commander, right? Like if we think it reduces variance, if we make enough of them, because the biggest problem now is like, I have a deck I want to play. There is no suitable companion. I can't play this deck. Otherwise I'm disadvantaged. But if Wizards just made 50 companions that had like really no restriction, like the restriction is you play lands in your deck or something, right?
It's not really a restriction.
I could
right?
have like the Tarmogoyf companion, or I could have the Cryptic Command companion or something, right? Like it's just like, an 8th card.
Would that make Magic better though? Like, would that make the game more fun if you get to start with your best card in hand every game? Like, is that actually like, would that even be enjoyable for anyone? Like,
it is for me, because
I mean, like Standard is enjoyable right now.
Well, think about it like this. How many games have you lost where you're just like, you know, you're a landlord, you know, you've got so much real estate. You don't have anything to do, right? So like this does help with that. And I mean, yeah, it's very powerful, but I like that. And I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing to always have something to do.
So like so this comes up a lot, because one of the things I've talked about with a lot of people about is like the London Mulligan rule and how it reduces variance and lets you find specific cards more consistently. I think at some point, mechanics and rules that reduce variance have to become a bad thing. Like, I think the argument I always go back to is like, if having there be less variance and more consistency is always a good thing, why don't you just get to choose your 7-card opening hand? You build your deck, you Demonic Tutor 7 in hand, you know your deck's going to function exactly the way you want it to every single game, and then you flip up your cards and see what happens. Like, I think most people would agree that level of variance would be a negative for Magic, so there has to be a line where it becomes a bad thing.
And the line is 1 card, a companion. Right? Instead of 7, you choose 1 card, right? Like, I think you're right though, Seth. There is a line, right? But today, we are at the very far end of that, where it's all random, right? You get a London Mulligan, or you get London Mulligans, right? So there's some of that, but you're still on the very far end of like stacking your deck, right? The opposite of that would be choose your 7 cards and stack your entire deck, right? Then like, you know, everything is deterministic. But I think there are more ways to get closer to that without getting there. And I think we're going to see that in Magic. Like, I think Wizards, like the main goal, like if you start teaching new players, like the worst thing that could happen is they get mana screwed, they do nothing, and they're like, what is this game? I didn't even do anything. Yeah. Right? It's like playing an MMO or something, and the first boss you fight is like the raid endgame boss. You're like, what? Right? I can't do anything. I just got slaughtered, right? So
I understand that feeling.
To reduce that.
Drawing lands is my boss. Like, I get it.
So if companions are not the answer, like maybe it's something else, but it's going to be something to reduce variance and mana screw. Like removing mana screw from the game somehow, or reducing it so that, you know, you just don't sit down and actually do nothing for like 20 minutes.
Yeah, like, cause that's the thing with all the people that play Magic that I, like, you know, I get them to play and they're new to Magic. They just like, well, the whole like land system and stuff like really threw them off, cause they either didn't have enough of it or they only had that. And that it is not fun, right? But we can never get rid of lands either, right? Cause I know some people are like, just get rid of lands just in general. That's a dated thing. But I'm like, no, you can't do that. So
I think from my perspective, like, I would rather get mana screwed 10%, 15% of the time, whenever it is, than have to play the same game over and over. Like, I play Jeskai Fires, and literally every time they have fires on turn 4. Like, I'm not even really exaggerating. It's like 80% or something.
Yeah,
they
Companions didn't help that.
Yeah, but that's London Mulligans and Companions and like all the other stuff to reduce variance. So I feel like, I don't know. I get what you're going for. Like, make the game more accessible to new players. But at some point, like, those players aren't going to stick around because they're like, oh, I already did the same exact thing 10 times. Like, I'm going to go play something else now. Like, I don't know. I don't know if we've crossed the line or not, but I know there is a line.
There is a line.
The more we keep moving towards it, the sooner or later we will cross it. Like London Mulligans, then Companions. Like sooner or later, I already feel like the game has become less fun for me, honestly, because of the variance reducing changes. I still love Magic and I still really enjoy it, but I would say compared to before those changes, I find it a lot more repetitive now, honestly.
I've gone in the direction where there are some cards that are problematic, but I have enjoyed the changes. I loved London Mulligan. I love the direction of like just like not getting owned all the time by like variants and like finding specific cards, right? Like, I mean, I think maybe if you're like something that WotC can do is like just like print even like, I don't know, like better answers that are more versatile too. Like I think commands were a good thing. For standard, like something that can like blow up fires and do something that when they don't have fires, just more modal cards. I really like the modal cards.
Yeah, I agree with both of you. Like I totally get where Seth is going now because like I play standard now. I don't play that long anymore. Like I remember when I first started playing Magic, I would play standard for like months. Like I don't even know how this was possible, right? Like I would like grind Moto for like forever. Now I play 10 games and I'm like, okay, I think I've lived the Jeskai Fires experience. I think I've seen like all the matchups and yeah, I think I'm good to go. And I just like log off, right? Like there's no point because like every game is kind of the same, right? So I totally get where Seth is coming from. But is it better if I play double amount of games where half the games I don't do anything and die? Like I don't know, right? So
yeah,
it's an interesting predicament. But yeah.
But right, like that, but think about that. If you throw modal cards into this, right, like more of them, now there's something to answer everything, right? Like, so you're not just sitting like, well, that's very cool. You casted 2 very good spells for free this turn, right? Like, but cause like before you're right though. Like there was a part of standard where you could attack the popular decks with like these off the beaten path answers and stuff like that. But those answers kind of don't exist. And like, I mean, Gem Razor is good. It's good, but I want something that is more like more Gem Razors, different Gem Razors, ones that are actually like really good.
So our Mythos of Vindicate, whichever like, Mythos that is.
Mythos is fine, but like it's only a 1-for-1, right? And like Fires beats that if you're trying to 1-for-1.
That's one of the funny things is I had a lot of people having this conversation like, oh, we need like Swords to Plowshares and Lightning Bolt. And I was like, I don't know, like, with how threats work these days, like, do those level of answers, does that even do anything? Your opponent already, like, played Uro and drew a card and gained life. Like, sure, you swordsed it, but, like, does that even, you're still technically down a card and you're the one that spent the removal. Like, I kind of feel like it's a threat problem. I'm not sure you can print answers that are good enough. I think maybe Wizards has went a little far with threats that do something right away. I think maybe that needs to be toned down. Like, we were talking about Obliterator earlier, being a really powerful card, but you do need to untap with it. So I feel like maybe pulling back a little bit, as much as I love Panharmonicons and Blink decks, like maybe pulling back a little bit on threats that like immediately generate their value when they hit the battlefield would be a positive thing for Standard.
Yeah. Well, this is going super long, but I actually came up with this realization as I was lamenting over Thoughtseize. Because I was wondering, it was like, am I being a crabby old man? Like, is Jund like this bad? And I was thinking through the glory days, there were combo decks in Modern, but they were all creature-based combos. Like, people played like Infect, Boggles, Splinter Twin. So your normal suite of interaction worked against those combo decks. Whereas nowadays, like, there's no you can't interact because their combos are through spells or like big mana and things like that. So maybe if we change Fires to be creature You know, like it was a 4-mana creature that lets you cast spells, right? You could actually just remove it with your normal removal, and then the game would continue, except now you need versatile answers. You need something to handle an enchantment from this deck, an artifact from the other deck, a creature from this other deck. So maybe it's because we moved away from like just creature-based combos that are actually interactable.
You know what I blame, Richard? I blame Siege Rhino.
Siege Rhino was the start of it all.
Why? Let me tell you why. But like like Siege Rhino, when it came into play, it helix people, right? Like that was to me like, yeah, I thought that card was really good, right? Like, but that was like insane value. It was perfectly balanced, beautifully designed card. But then they kind of just kept adding on to that, right? Now it's like everything is like Siege Rhino. Like, are you kidding me? That's not even that powerful anymore compared to like all the things that you can be doing, right? So as they started to attach spells to every creature, they just started throwing them on there. This is like a build your own pizza, and they've really just thrown every topping on there. Like it walks your dog. It deals 3 damage. It ramps. It does this. You know what I mean? Like, so yeah, you're right. The threats are doing a lot more, and the answers are still just 1-for-1s. So now you need to do things like make answers that are like, Path to Exile, you also gain 3 life and draw a card. That's like genuinely the only way I think you can keep up with all these creatures.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I don't know the answer. And when I talk about this stuff, I'm not even convinced that I'm right on it. Like, I'm just sharing my feelings. And there is a huge, like, big gray area there about variants and card design and all that stuff. But I think it is a really interesting topic. Although also a really long topic. We could probably do an entire cast just like talking about stuff like this, but we should probably wrap it up. We're already like one of our longest casts in a while, so.
Because we cursed it with the short cast today, guys.
Yes.
Way to go, Seth. Way to go.
All right. Well, thank you to everyone who sent in their fish mail. If you have questions, send them to @MTGGoldfish with the hashtag MTGFishmail, and we'll go off on long-winded rants about stuff.
And on that note, I think that brings us to the end of episode 275 of the MTG Goldfish podcast. So, Richard Krim, thanks for hanging out. Thanks to everyone for listening. Thanks to Spikes Academy for supporting the show. And we will be back next week to talk about whatever goes on in the world of Magic, and maybe even add some long-winded rants in for fun. So until then, have a wonderful week, and this is a crew signing out.